My full name is Flint Robert Fivecoait. I was born in West Palm Beach, Florida. Moved to Ohio in 1978 and was an Ohio citizen for many years. I joined the military and I ended up here in Corbin, Kentucky.
Do you have any family members that are serving or have served in the military?
I've had several family members serve in the military prior to me, and that was my father was a Vietnam vet, 2 tours. My grandfather was in World War II, the Battle of the Bulge under Patton, and my sister also was in the military, and my brother was in the first Gulf War.
What were you doing before you entered the service?
Before I entered the service, I was doing a lot of odd-end jobs, no career paths. I think I was working maybe at a gas station, believe it or not, and I just decided that I needed the change, and I volunteered.
In which branch of the military did you serve, and did you enlist or were you drafted?
I served in the United States Army. That was the branch of service I served in 1992 to 95, and then I went back in as a reserve unit for a while and also back to active duty after 9/11.
Why did you choose to serve in the Why did you choose to serve in the Army?
My brother and sister were both in the Army. I decided to serve there because I felt like I knew more about the Army than I did at any other branch, and I just always seen the commercials on TV, the Be All You Can Be, and I really liked that logo.
What happened when you departed for training camp and during your early days of training?
When I deployed to basic training in November of 1992, I remember when I got off the bus, the drill sergeant told me, "You guys were probably the stupidest privates to join the military in the middle of winter in Missouri." And I remember that day to the day I died, and it was quite an eye-opening experience.
Did you receive any specialized training? If so, what?
Yes, I received several specialized trainings. I was a military police. I was also air conditioning, heating mechanic when I first went in and changed my MOS, which is your job skill. And before I got out of the military, I was an Army recruiter, and that's how I ended up in Kentucky.
How did you adapt to military life, including the physical regimen, barracks food, and social life?
When I went in the military, I had to adjust to a different lifestyle. Very regimented. My father being a Vietnam vet, I did learn some of that from him through him being my father. And I took to it very well, and I liked that structure. And I felt like that was a good calling for me. It felt like I really belonged there. And I really like the camaraderie that you have in the military that it's hard to find in the civilian world, and I do miss that.
Where did you serve?
My first duty assignment where I served was Fort Leonard Wood, Missouri. From there I went to Fort Riley, Kansas, so I was a long way from home, and I can remember how flat it was out there. Being from southeast Ohio, it was pretty neat to see how flat it was, and you could see for miles. And then I went to Fort Jackson, South Carolina, Fort Knox, Kentucky twice, and then I went overseas, of course, to Iraq and Kuwait.
What were your duties?
My duties in the military was, first of all, everyone in the military, you're all infantry to begin with. That's your basic training. But I also was a military police, and I learned a lot of things, a lot of different missions that military police had to do. And also, again, I was trained as an air conditioning heating mechanic in the early days, and I learned a lot about generators and power equipment, stuff like that.
Do you have any memories you'd like to share about your service abroad?
Memories I have that I'd like to share is when 9/11 happened, I was asleep and my mother called me and woke me up and saying on the phone that we were being attacked. Of course, waking up at 6:30 or 9:30 in the morning, I wasn't sure exactly what was going on. And I just remember thinking to myself, I have to do something. So I decided to go back in the military. 4 days later, I was deployed. And a lot of those memories I have will be stuck with me forever. But probably the one memory that I remember the most is trying to help some of the children over there that were so impoverished. And I would always tell my mother to send me extra care packages with toys and crowns and stuff like that, because I felt like I had to be something good besides just a soldier.
What kind of friendships and camaraderie did you form while serving?
I served some very strong friendships, camaraderie, and also a band of brothers. I have 4 or 5 friends that we get together every Memorial Day that I served with, and we don't get to see each other much, and it's a very strong bond that we have. And we get together every Memorial Day for a weekend, and we hang out and we talk, and I cherish them, and they love me like a brother, and I love them like a brother also.
How did you stay in touch with family and friends back home?
I stayed in touch with family when I was in Iraq through mostly letters. At the time, we didn't have any internet service over there or any kind of cell phones or anything like that, because we was there for the invasion, which is in the early days of the war, and pretty much mail was the only way you could communicate with your family. And it would take 2 to 3 weeks before your letter would reach you, or the letter from home would reach them, or vice versa.
What types of combat did you witness?
The kind of combat that I witnessed being a military police, I did a lot of escort convoys where we would drive all over the country, and we would do like security for like engineers, water trucks, food trucks. We also run a lot of prisoners to different camps or pickups and drop-offs. And I was a gunner, and I was the guy that was in the top of the turret of the Humvee. And we got shot at a lot while we were driving, but most of the time we would just keep going because it was safer to keep going than to stop. Probably the biggest memory that I have is one night we got mortared. We got mortared regularly, but one night we got mortared. And being a prisoner of war camp, we had 10,000 prisoners being guarded by 300 MPs. And the mortars killed almost 60 prisoners of war. And one of my actions is what stopped the attack, because I was just in the right position at the right time to put suppression fire down on the mortar team. And this was very dark, so it was hard to see, but that was very traumatic, because I remember they were stacking the bodies like cardboard or like wood, and the helicopters would come in for hours picking up the wounded. And I just remember the screams and the sheer panic of the attack, and thankfully no U.S. soldiers got killed that night.
Where were you when the war ended?
When the war ended, for me, we were at Abu Ghraib, the notorious prison that got a lot of publicity with the inmate treatment, with the pictures and all the torture and stuff. And that was not my unit. That unit replaced us, so we left before that incident happened. But that's where I was at that Abu Ghraib prison, and that was one of Saddam Hussein's political prisons where he would kill and torture people.
How did you return home?
I returned home civilian flight, which is kind of funny because that's how I ended up going over. But when we returned, it was really early in the morning, and we were very tired. It's like a 22-hour flight. We're dirty, we're filthy, we're tired. We know we're going home, but we're just exhausted. We're trying to analyze everything we've been through, because now we're going home. We're thinking about all the things we couldn't think about. And I remember when we come to Maine. I don't know the airport, but I remember when we landed, it was 2:30 in the morning, and when we stepped off the plane to walk into the actual terminal, there was hundreds of Vietnam vets there to welcome us. And I'll never forget that.
How did you readjust to civilian life?
When I came home and trying to readjust to civilian life, it was, at first, it didn't seem that difficult for me. A lot of my thoughts and memories were kind of deep inside, and I really wasn't focusing on them. I was more or less just trying to enjoy the things in life that I couldn't enjoy for the last year, and I was really looking forward to taking a hot shower and a bath again, eating good food, and wearing clothes that are anything other than brown. And I remember when I came home, one of the first places we went was the mall at Fort Knox, and I just remember seeing the colors. The colors were just so bright and pretty, because over there everything was drab and brown and black and sand colors. So the colors to me was just incredible. But as the years went on, I started having some problems adjusting back to civilian life, and some of my problems started coming up with PTSD. And now, 10 years later, I still struggle with a lot of things, though I am working and going through treatment, trying to deal with what I went through being in Iraq.
Are you a member of any veterans organizations?
I currently am not a member of any veterans organizations, but I do go through the VA for treatment, and I've met a lot of good brothers in arms from the Vietnam era that I get to spend some time with and do some fun things with, and they've almost taken me in like a son to them. So I think that probably my only affiliation right now is with Vietnam veterans.
What have you done since separating from the military?
Since I separated from the military, I did a little bit of security work in the early days. They didn't work out. Now I work for a school system and head custodian. And it's a different environment. It's a different jungle, I call it. But I enjoy it, and I'm glad that I can still contribute to society.
How did your wartime experiences affect your life?
The wartime experiences affected my life, and I've been thinking about this. Some good ways and some bad ways. The good ways, I think it's made me appreciate things more in life that we really take for granted over here. When you go without a shower for a year, when you can only drink water, being dirty and filthy all the time, having water to shave and brush your teeth, and little things like that you never even think about, you take for granted. But when you go without those things for a long time, it makes you appreciate things like that, running water and electricity and stuff like that. And it has really opened my eyes to a lot of things. It seems like being a combat veteran, you've developed almost a sixth sense that you can really see danger where other people might not see it, because your body and mind have forced you to adapt to that, to survive in a war environment. And it's been like that for, I'm sure, thousands of years with other soldiers. And I think that's a good thing for me. Some people call it paranoia, but it just, you're more aware of your surroundings. Some of the bad effects of it, though, with the PTSD, is relationships and anger issues, depression, alcohol or drug abuse, things like that. And you're trying to escape what you're fighting inside, and sometimes the only way you can do that is isolation, or the alcohol and drugs. It's not all bad, but it's things that I know I'm a changed person coming back.
How has your military service impacted your feelings about war and the military in general?
My military service, the way I look at it now, and it has my thoughts about it, has probably changed some. Once you're over there and then you come home, you start thinking of why was I there? And there's always a political reason for war. There's always something that's involved politically. And reading history and reading like World War II and Vietnam and Korea and all these other wars that I've studied as a young man, you don't see that side of the war as the political stuff. And it makes you more hesitant to want to go to war for the younger people, younger than me, because I can't go to war anymore, but I'm too old. But there's a lot of young people out there, and when I hear people talking about, well, we going to war with other countries, it makes me sad, because most people who make these decisions have probably never been in war and don't know what it really is. And there's an old saying that all soldiers come home wounded, and you think about that it does change you, and I hate to see anyone go through some of the things that I had to go through, and other guys that went through in other eras of wars, and some of the awful things they had to go through and see.
What message would you like to leave for future generations who will view or hear this interview?
In the future, I'd like for young people to get out of this that the military was very good to me. It made me the man that I am. It taught me a lot of great lessons about teamwork, working hard, not being selfish. The bonds that you make in the military are so strong. But you have to make sure that you're going in the military for the right reasons. And if that's the life for you, and you'll know quickly within a year or two if that's what you want to do with your life. I wish everyone could experience it a little bit, just to see what it's about, what it is and what it isn't. There's a lot of great things about the military, and I would never tell anyone not to do it. But just be aware that if you ever do that oath to serve your country, that when the time comes, you have to do that, because it's an oath, and it's your duty. If you raise your right hand, it's your duty. It doesn't matter the politics. It doesn't matter the situation. You've taken an oath, and you have to go through with that.
Is there anything you feel like we haven't discussed or should be added to this interview?
There's probably a few things I would like to discuss that maybe that wasn't asked. Is again, the military has been so good to me, and I do love it, and I cherish it, and even though I'm out now, I've been out now since 2005, but there's not a day that I don't wake up and I don't feel like I'm still there. And the military, once a soldier, always a soldier. And I didn't understand that until now. And that's a piece of me that I guess I'm proud of. And I miss it. I miss serving, and I would encourage anyone that wanted to do it, if that's what they wanted to do it, because it was a it was a wild ride, and it was something I'll take to my grave.